And we are live with another episode of the Sci-Fi Power Hour-ish. And we're talking Fantastic Four and other sci-fi news. But the kind of big news of this week is that Fantastic Four, they kind of want to make that into Jon Krasinski wants to do a reboot starring his wife. And I'm like, why?
And we could also discuss about the Fantastic Four's triumph return to the comics.
Yes. They brought them back to the comics, thank God, because I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I'm a huge Fantastic Four fan. But I'm like an old school Fantastic Four fan. I don't like when they change the formula. Like, well, they have a kid, they have a daughter, the Future Foundation. Like, I don't give a shit about that. I'm like old school Fantastic Four. So like when it was just, you know, Reed, Sue, Johnny, Ben. That's what I like. But you know, everyone has their own proclivities and things that they like about the Fantastic Four. So, what shall we get into first? The reboot of the comics or the reboot of the?
Talk about the reboot first.
Oh, the comics or the movie?
The movie.
All right. So basically, essentially speaking, people want to create a. Jon Krasinski wants to create a Fantastic Four movie where he's Reed Richards and his wife would be his real world wife would be played by his wife in the movie would be played by his real world wife, Emily Blunt. And I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I am kind of reminded of the Rob Zombie movies where he casts his wife in his movies.
Yeah, I mean what bothers me about the idea is that like Sue Storm is not conventionally really hot. Like she's been drawn to be really hot as time went on. You know, as you know,
yeah.
But originally she wasn't hot. Emily Blunt is kind of fucking hot. And like, I mean, she doesn't really do anything for me, but a lot of people think she's very attractive. And I'm like, Sue Storm is not supposed to be like, this is where Tim Story fucked up, was that they got Jessica Alba to play Sue Storm, and Jessica Alba is really hot. I mean, the whole point about Sue Storm and Reed Richards, that Reed Richards is this nerd who has no game, who he finds Sue Storm, and Reed, like, basically, he's older than her, and Sue's like a 7, Reed's a 5, but for Reed, who's a nerd and doesn't really get out, she's like a 10 for him, right? That's the whole point of the Fantastic Four. It's like Emily Blunt is too real world hot in order to be Sue Storm, in my opinion. Now, I mean, you know, plus Jon Krasinski is mad because he was almost Captain America. He's like, I was almost Captain America.
So, and he'll probably won't have his chance either, since there's a chance, since we know that Chris Evans will be retiring from Captain America after Infinity War.
I mean, could be. I don't know.
And the speculation that either Bucky or Sam will take his place as the new Captain America.
Here's what I'm going to say about that, okay? We don't know what's going to happen because there's like 3 characters who could die off in this film. There's Iron Man, there's Captain America, there's
Thor,
Hawkeye. No, 3 characters who we know are probably going to die off. I think Chris Hemsworth has like another movie he's contractually obligated to be in. And Chris Evans, I think he re-upped his contract. So, I mean, I don't know. Like, it's just, I don't know. Personally, I would like to see Tony Stark die. Just because, like, that would signal the end of this. Because it started with Iron Man. It should end. This phase should really end with Iron Man. It's been 10 years. Wrap the shit up. And I don't mean, like, die off. I mean, maybe he's like, look, I can't be Iron Man anymore. It's someone else's turn. And he, you know, like maybe instead of like a movie thing, like he might show up as a cameo, kind of like Sam Jackson does in later films. Like, hey, you can do this. Here's some technology for you guys. But I mean, I don't want to see Captain America die because I mean, it's Captain America, and he's such an awesome character. It's like seeing Captain America die is like seeing Superman die. You don't want to see those characters die. Batman, I don't really give a shit about, so fuck him. But I mean, this is the cinematic universe, and it's different for each universe, so you never know. But
and for the reboot, as John mentioned, who will be casted for Johnny Storm and Ben Grimm?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the thing is that like it doesn't matter which actors you get. You have to get actors that have chemistry with one another, because the Fantastic Four, there's two. In order to get a Fantastic Four movie done right, there's two things you have to remember. Number one,
they got to be dysfunctional.
No, the Fantastic Four is a family. They're a family. Like Reed Richards is he's the really aloof father who you think doesn't give a shit, but he actually cares too much, but he doesn't know how to express it properly. Sue Storm is the mom, and then Johnny Storm is the annoying kid. And then Ben is your cool uncle who fights with the kid. But if anyone fucks with the kid or anyone else in the family, he's got your back. You know, like they're a family, right? That I mean, there's two things you have to get. The reason that a lot of the Fantastic Four movies kind of fail is because, first of all, they forget that it's about a family and that they're explorers. Like the Fantastic Four aren't superheroes in the conventional sense. They're scientists. They're explorers. They're always trying to figure out. They're always trying to delve and to see new things and to go further in technology and learning more about what's going on in the universe around them. That's the entire point. Like that's the whole thing about the Fantastic Four. And so many films, like there's been like 3 Fantastic Four films released theatrically, and all of them sucked because people didn't understand that. Like the Tim Story ones got the closest, but they still weren't that good. Then they fucked up with the second one because they fucked up Galactus. I don't know how you fuck up Galactus, but whatever. And then the Josh Trank one was just a bowl of shit. So I mean, you know, like in every film they keep on telling the origin story. We don't need to see the origin story again with the Fantastic Four because I mean, like you need to know their origin, but we don't need to okay. I don't know. Here, I'll give you a little elevator speech about my idea for a new Fantastic Four movie. The movie opens where it's the Baxter Building. If you know anything about the Fantastic Four, the Baxter Building is like their headquarters. It's like Stark Tower or Wayne Manor. What?
Or the Avengers Tower.
Or the Avengers. In the cinematic universe, the Avengers have a tower. In the comics, they have like 2 layers, like Avengers East Coast and Avengers West Coast. It's weird. But basically, like it's Baxter Towers where the Fantastic Four do a lot of their stuff. And I mean the Baxter Building. And I mean you could have and here's a little something. The Baxter Building is always over leveraged and about to be snatched by the bank because Reed uses it as he uses his leverage for bank loans in order to fund his experiments and stuff like that. So he always has to invent something in order to sell it, in order to make money to buy back the Baxter Building. So yeah. Look, the reason Sue Storm stays with Mr. Fantastic isn't because of his money prowess. It's because he can stretch any part of his body to any size, any length, any girth. So yeah, she'd have to be crazy to leave a man like that. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Fantastic Four is so my elevator speech is it opens in the Baxter Building with these people. They've converted part of the Baxter Building into a museum, right? And like kind of like a touristy type thing, and they're charging people, I don't know, $10 a ticket, which is not that bad for, you know, a place where fantastic otherworldly sciences are done. And they're looking at it, and like you see a little blurb on this little tour thing, kind of like they did in Jurassic Park, where they have the little ride in the beginning, where they're like telling them how they created these dinosaurs. Well, it's like a little thing that tells the origin of the Fantastic Four. It's very quick, like 20 seconds. It's like, well, 4 people, Dr. Reed Richards, Sue Storm, Johnny Storm, and Ben Grimm, illegally procured a rocket ship and went into space. They were bombarded with cosmic rays, and when they came back to Earth, they had powers. And this was the birth of the Fantastic Four. You could have it be like a little cartoon thing. And they're like, now it's like, yeah. And if you'd like to hear more, if you'd like to learn more, you can buy Reed Richards' book, How I Got Powers. How I at the gift shop. But before we do, let's move further on into the tour. You know, and you could have the tour. I mean, if this was done quickly, you could have the tour guide be. You could have one of the people in the back. This doesn't make any sense. Be Stan Lee, because you got to have a Stan Lee cameo. But now that you've gotten that out the way, cut to a place further in the building that's not for the tour, where Reed Richards is like, he's got a 5 o'clock shadow, like, or even a beard. He looks like really raggedy, and he's like working and he's got a lab coat on. He's working in the lab, and it's another failure. He's like, no, and he's like, damn it. and you discover that the Fantastic Four has broken up. Reed Richards is just in the building by himself. Sue Storm's gone off and doing her own thing. Johnny Storm is off doing his own thing, and Ben's gone off and doing his own thing. So Reed basically gets a phone call. He's like, I guess I should take a break. He picks up the phone, and he finds out that you know, he's over leveraged yet again. The Baxter Building is about to be repossessed, and he's like, but I'm so close to having a breakthrough. It's like, yeah, well, so close doesn't pay the bills. so he hangs up the phone. He's like, oh man, I'm gonna have to sell another invention. And so he's like, let's see. He looks in this box and has all these inventions that are like wondrous things. Like, I'll sell this one. It's a clean, renewable energy source. and he sells that one. And he shows it off, and it's bought by this mysterious buyer. That's the next scene. And Reed's like, yes, I figured out. He's like, I figured out a way to help my friend. So he goes to this wildlife preserve in Middle America, and Ben now works there as a park ranger, protecting the animals from, you know, being hunted and shit like that. And because Ben doesn't want to be seen by normal people, but the animals treat him just fine, because, you know, they think he's a rock. So a moving rock, but a rock nonetheless. So he meets Ben. They have a talk. He's like, Ben, you know, I found a way to help you. He's like, what, really? Well, you know, and they have their touching heart to heart, whatever. And Ben's back on board. So the film is Reed getting the team back together, because he discovers that someone's been using his inventions to do shady things. Yes, to do shady things. He's like, oh my God. And when he finds out who it is, it's this random businessman named, I don't know, Max Tyrannus or some shit like that. You know, some random name. It's like, you know, he's like, well, I don't know who the hell this guy is, because like the whole time the crowd's gonna think it's Dr. Doom. It's not Dr. Doom, at least not directly. You discover that Max Tyrannus's entire business empire has been funded is being funded by a little country in Europe called Latveria at the very end of the film. And you see this guy walking in with one of Reed Richards' inventions, that totally clean renewable energy source. And he's like, yes, another chip falls in place, and that's the end of that's the film. You do not have Doctor Doom in the film aside from that little stinger at the very end. No Doctor Doom. The villain in this one is completely different. It's a megalomaniacal businessman who has gotten a little too big for his britches. That's your villain, okay? And it's basically
in other words, an OC villain.
Well, no. In in the comics, Tyrannus is this guy called the Under. He's this guy who basically found the second civilization in the crust of the earth that has this fountain of youth, and he basically took them over, and he's got like powers. He's insanely old, insanely powerful. I would say that this guy is a version of that. Like, it turns out, like, as they discover more about Tyrannus, they find out that he's actually this really old guy that, you know, he just appeared like 80 years ago, and like after about 20 or 30 years, the guy dies, and a new guy comes in who says, well, I'm his son, I'm going to take over the business. But you find out, in fact, it's the same guy. So you use a different villain, because Doctor Doom, Doctor Doom deserves a movie where you get to have actual character development, and he's built up. It shouldn't be like, oh my God, it's Doctor Doom, okay, whatever, blah blah blah.
Yeah, because next to Thanos, he's like one of the most dangerous Marvel villains.
I mean, I would say number one is Galactus, because Galactus eats planets. Number two is maybe like that. Thanos really isn't that bad of a villain. I mean, I know. Look. The reason Marvel is using Thanos is because they had Thanos, but there's worse villains than Thanos. Thanos is like 5 or 6 on the list. Galactus, in my opinion, is number one. Maybe followed by Satanish. Because he's the devil. You know, I mean, those are threats that can end our universes. And then the other villains are like, the Red Skull, but I mean, the Earth wouldn't be destroyed; it would just be a Nazi paradise. I mean, that's bad, but I mean, there's still hope, because, you know, the heroes would be doing something. But once the universe is gone, that's it, you know. But yeah, I would do a movie like that. No Doctor Doom, except at the very end. Something like that, because I mean, Fantastic Four, like I said, one of my favorite comic book franchises, but it hasn't been done right for a long time.
Oh, and this is assuming that they don't. That is assuming that the standalone Doctor Doom movie doesn't go into fruition after the buyout.
Even if it did go into fruition, it probably wouldn't. I mean, like, here's the thing: Fox, that movie's never going to get made.
True, because it hasn't started production yet. Though there were plans for it.
I don't see it happening. If the merger goes through, it's not going to happen. And I'm okay with that, because fuck that movie.
Now, and where in the MCU will it take place for your idea for the story? Is it before or after the events of Infinity War?
I think it would be better to make it a period piece set in the 80s or the 70s.
Okay, so like how Captain Marvel is going to be taking place in the 90s then.
Yeah, because I mean, the Fantastic Four are like the Fantastic Four are a very important comic, not just because they were one of the, like, they in my opinion, the Fantastic Four helped kick off the Silver Age of comics, but because so many really important Marvel characters started in the Fantastic Four. or
Like
at
you got
least
Black
became
Panther,
popular in the fantasy. Well, Black Panther, Doctor Doom,
the Inhumans.
the Inhumans, the Immortals. I mean, just the Fantastic Four are so important to the Marvel universe, just the comic book universe. That I mean, like you'd have to have it set before everything, like maybe the 70s, in order to retroactively put them into the universe. And like you could explain, well, maybe they have like 2 movies, and the second movie, like the Fantastic Four decide, well, I mean, we're gonna go exploring in outer space. And so that's why you didn't see them do the events of Infinity War and all this other stuff, because they were off exploring. Because they are, I mean, the Fantastic Four, like I said, they aren't superheroes in the conventional sense. They're scientists, they're explorers. They aren't necessarily, and when they do encounter problems, they figure them out via science, technology, and science.
So now the MCU had to explain how mutants came into being in the MCU and why we haven't seen them the rest of the 10-year period.
They probably won't explain it. They'll just probably be like, yeah, they're mutants. Okay. Like, I mean, that's easier to explain away, because it's like, oh, well, this guy has healing factors. Yeah, it's a mutation. So you're saying that they're mutants? Yes, that's it. I mean, that's all they really have to do. I mean, it's like, well, I mean, like I said, I wish this had happened maybe 2 or 3 years ago. So then Infinity War would have been great to have the X-Men pop up in. Because like you basically have all these heroes, including the X-Men. That would have been cool. It's like, maybe they're getting their ass kicked by some of Thanos' army of whatever, and then the X-Men pop up. But I mean, look, listen, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been run so well thus far for the last 10 years.
That they don't need the X-Men as of yet. At least not yet.
Well, no, I trust them with whatever they're gonna do.
All right.
Like they've been like, I mean, think about it. I mean, even the not so good Marvel films are still better than the not so good DC films at this point. So I trust them a little bit more. You know what I mean?
Right.
They earned that trust over a decade of putting in the work. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And those continuing on with Infinity War, I found this Forbes article making a very bold claim that Fallen Kingdom is going to be this summer's most important movie, more important than the Avengers, Infinity War, and Solo, Star Wars movie.
I mean, okay, let me put it this way. I've heard a lot of bad stuff about Solo. I still want to watch it because I like
Ron Howard's work.
No, I like Han Solo as a character, and this movie is taking a lot of inspiration from the Young Han Solo trilogy, which I read by A.C. Crispin, and I really love. I mean, that's one of my favorite Star Wars expanded universe novels. So I still am gonna go watch it because I like the Young Han Solo trilogy. I like the story of young Han Solo, how he meets Chewie and how he meets Lando Calrissian, and how they first met Boba Fett, and why Boba Fett has this hate boner for Han Solo. It's one of those things that really is. It tells a lot of the backstory about Han Solo. I like that, but I don't think it's going to be that big of a movie. I think it's going to do okay, not great. I think
they'll be competing against Deadpool in the same month.
Yeah, I think Disney's already written that movie off. I think if it makes its budget back, it'll be considered a success. I'm just gonna this is going off on a tangent a little bit. I think that Kathleen Kennedy she's not gonna be the head of LucasArts by the end of this year. I think they're going to find a way to bundle her ass off because she's just not been doing her job very well.
Kind of weird that Star Wars is the only that Lucasfilm is the only faction that's not doing well under the Disney belt.
No, there's a lot of factions that haven't, like Muppets hasn't done shit under the Disney belt. Like, here's the thing. More things that Disney buys do poorly than do well. Marvel is an exception. But the Muppets didn't do well under Disney. Like, a lot of shit Disney buys doesn't do well once Disney buys them. Because Disney's business model is different. Like, first of all, Disney has kind of oversaturated the market with Star Wars, but not in a good way because we aren't getting high quality movies. We're getting like okay to mediocre films. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I don't care if you do like The Force Awakens. The Force Awakens is not as good as what it's aping, A New Hope. The Last Jedi is damn sure not as good as Empire Strikes Back. Like, it's right. Just like it's like Rian Johnson. Well, I wanted to go dark and gritty like Empire Strikes Back. Yeah, but your film sucks compared to Empire Strikes Back, even though you had the same script writer. It's just, you know, I mean, I'm sorry, you're just. I mean, and I know people are going to be like, well, what about the Star Wars films that came out in the 90s, you know, starting in 98 with, you know, A Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. Yeah, those movies aren't good, but they're watchable. Like, there's something in all those films where you're like, well, that was cool. These story moments were cool. There is nothing in the new Star Wars films where I'm like, yeah, this is totally worth it. This is memorable. I have to go watch this again. This is the first time
despite the warnings by Red Letter Media's Pinklet, who did a review of all of the prequels.
I mean, like I said, like, here's the thing. The prequels aren't good, but there are watchable parts of it. Like, Phantom Menace is not a good film, but there are characters that you can still be like, okay, it's cool seeing a young Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's cool seeing his master. It's cool seeing, well, it's not cool seeing bitchy little Anakin Skywalker, but it's cool seeing Tatooine early on. It's cool seeing, the only downside of the Phantom Menace was fucking Jar Jar Binks, really, and Anakin Skywalker, even though it's supposed to be his story. And I mean, in Attack of the Clones, it's cool seeing the Jedi fight the droid army. It's cool seeing the beginning of because at the end of Attack of the Clones, you see the clone troopers walking into proto Star Destroyers, and you begin to see the plan that Palpatine was doing, and it's like, okay, while this film wasn't that good, it's good as a Star Wars fan seeing how the Emperor came to power. How the Emperor came to power. How the Jedi were eradicated. Like, it's like, I don't like the movies aren't that good, but they do share a DNA that you just, you know, people get mad about George Lucas. And George Lucas made this movie, blah blah blah. I don't like it. But at least those movies are coherent and they share similar DNA. Like, this whole bullshit where they're like, well, we get a different director for each of these movies. There is no coherency in these films. Like, the tone that you had in The Force Awakens is completely different from the tone that you have in The Last Jedi, which is probably going to be completely different from the tone that you have in the third film and final film in the 9-movie trilogy. And like I said, this is on Kathleen Kennedy because they're like, basically, and Disney, because it's Disney and Kathleen Kennedy, because there's too much Star Wars. Like, really, we should go back 2 or 3 years for every new Star Wars film. 3 years for every Star Wars film, like they did with the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy, and then you could have your little, like, in those 3 years, you could have your Rogue Ones or your solo stories, but it would be more spaced out instead of a Star Wars movie almost every fucking year, because that's just, you're saturating the market. You know, there's nothing to look forward to. You know what I mean?
Right. Why not 4 years? Since that way, the second year will be the Star Wars stories such as Rogue One and Solo.
The reason I go 3 years is just because it feels a lot better. Like 3 years is enough time that it kind of passes away, but you still remember it and you still can build up hype for it. 4 years is a little too long. Yeah, I think 3 years is perfect. Like the original Star Wars, 77, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, 80, Return of the Jedi, 83. 3 years. It's 3 years between each film. So basically, in 6 years, you got all three films, and that worked. And people who were like, "Man, I hate Return of the Jedi," and because of the Ewoks, because it was for kids. The Ewoks fucking ate the stormtroopers at the end of that film, right? But they're cannibals. Like the first time you properly meet the Ewoks, they're about to light a fire and eat Luke, Han, and Chewie. I mean, in a kids movie. Okay, so I don't want to hear, "Oh man, Return of the Jedi, it's so kiddie," and fuck you. No, there's nothing kiddie about that. But yeah, there's too much Star Wars. They saturated the market, and there's no consistency or anything in the film.
You could argue the same with the MCU.
Yeah, but here's the thing: the MCU, each film is kind of like fulfilling a different genre. Like the first Captain America was a war movie. The second Captain America was an espionage spy movie. Civil War was literally like everyone thinks, "Oh man, those action sequences are so good." There's a lot of talking in that film. It's almost like a legal drama. Is it like it's asking moral questions? If you have superpowers, should your powers be under the purview of an international governing body, or should it be up to the individual? It's like, it's asking like more security, less freedoms, more freedoms, less security. Like those are heady concepts. They're all different. Star Wars films could also follow that model, but like they haven't at this point. Like all the Star Wars films are just Star Wars films. Like the prequel trilogy are Star Wars films. The original trilogy are Star Wars films. The new films, even though they aren't that good, are just Star Wars films. Like it would be cool if we could have Star Wars films like more that are like Rogue One, where it's like, yeah, it's a Star Wars film, but it's also a spy film. Or yeah, it's a Star Wars film, but there's no Jedi in this. These are just normal people doing the best they can. But we aren't getting that because they have to pigeonhole in Jedi and Sith and fuckers with the special powers, and it's getting old because they're oversaturating the market. I mean,
Though you can blame them shoehorning Darth Vader in those Star Wars stories.
I mean, Darth Vader is a very popular villain, and it's not that to keep it real, it depends on how they do it. Okay, like Rogue One, Darth Vader shows up in Rogue One at the very end. Well, I mean, he shows up before then, but he really shows up at the very end, where he just goes to town on some fuckers, and and it's actually kind of cool, and it's like, okay, that makes sense, okay, because Darth Vader is the right hand man of the Emperor, so it would make sense that when the plans for the Death Star get stolen, he would show up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because remember, it takes place like moments before the event of the beginning of A New Hope.
It takes place. Rogue One takes place almost a week to 3 days before the events of A New Hope, and it works because it does take place that short a time between the two things. But my point is this. Like it's the shoehorning isn't what bothers me about Darth Vader, because if you read the Young Han Solo trilogy, like I said, it's by A.C. Crispin. Anyone wants a chance to read that, it's really good. Darth Vader shows up in the second book where basically Han Solo and his friends steal a really important thing for a crime lord they're working for, and they use forged imperial documents to make it seem like it's official. And Darth Vader shows up and strangles the guy. You never see him, but they're hiding, and Darth Vader strangles the guy. They hear him strangle this guy using the Force. And he, I mean, you could say, well, he was pigeonholed in, but you're letting them know that there's, like, here's the thing about the young Han Solo trilogy. Han Solo is a very small fish in a very, very large pond, right?
Right.
And the entire thing, it's like, okay, like he's like, man, I got to worry about this crime lord I work for, but the crime lords are scared of the fucking Empire. Okay, and who's the most dangerous motherfucker in the Empire? You could say the Emperor, but the Emperor spends most of his time, planning shit and using the Force to look into the future and make sure that the Force doesn't strike back at him. His right-hand man is the motherfucker you really don't want to fuck with, the dude who chokes motherfuckers from another ship away. So it kind of makes sense that you just, you got to have it. But I mean, it's how much you use. It's like a little bit of Darth Vader here, a little bit of Darth Vader there. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, I mean, that's all I'm saying. It's like, it's not that it's being shoehorned in. It's like there's too many fucking movies in a short period of time. Like, there should have been a Star Wars. There should be a 3-year time difference, and they should have kept that. And they should have had one person running the shit and not a different director, because now it's like J.J. Abrams, even though The Force Awakens was mediocre as fuck, has to basically stitch this shit together and try to make tie a bow onto this shit that Rian Johnson fucked up. It's like someone coming in and building the sandcastle, and you're like, okay, I gotta go use the bathroom, make sure the tide doesn't come in and fuck up my sandcastle. And he goes, and Rian Johnson just kicked his fucking sandcastle down and said, fuck you. and I mean, that's just not good. I mean, because look, this shit's about money. And not to mention the rest of Star Wars has been badly run. Like, this is the first time that we have a Star Wars movie come out and we don't have good Star Wars games out at the same time.
And this has caused many fans to proclaim that Star Wars is dead.
Well, I don't know if it's dead. It's definitely sick and in the corner puking. I mean, think about it. In the 80s, you had Star Wars games on the NES and the Tiger Electronics and the Atari. Like, you've always had Star Wars games.
And the arcades.
And the arcade and action figures. In the late 80s, when the NES came out, you had the Star Wars trilogies. You had Star Wars
4 and 5, never 6 for some reason.
No, man, that's the new numbering scheme. I'm using the old numbering scheme. You had Star Wars, you had Star Wars 1, Star Wars 2. Then you had, because the prequels came later, and then they renumbered everything. You had Star Wars 1 and Star Wars 2. Okay, Star Wars 1 was A New Hope. Star Wars 2 was Empire Strikes Back. And those were, I mean, they were hard games, and some of them made no goddamn sense whatsoever, because they had to take creative license in order to pad the games out. But they were fun. And then the Super Star Wars games on the SNES, those were great games. And you had arcade games, and you had PC games. Like, if you wanted to play Star Wars, you had something for you. This is the first time that, aside from that piece of shit Battlefront 2 game, you got nothing.
I remember years ago there was this video talking about how there hasn't been any innovative Star Wars game in a long time, since I believe the 90s. Because Star Wars has pretty much covered every single game genre there is.
I mean, here's the thing. LucasArts back in the day, like, they licensed a lot of really good games based on properties, like the Indiana Jones trilogy for the Super Nintendo, the Indiana Jones Temple of Doom arcade game, and PC home port conversion. Like, there were just really good games based on, like, everyone thinks that movie-based games suck, but there was a time when they were good. So, I mean, like I said,
so there were still bad movie-based games even during the arcade. Even during the Atari days.
Well, yeah, like E.T., but there were also good arcade games. Like I said, the Indiana Jones game was good, um, almost on anything. And you had Star Wars; those games were good. I mean, not great, but for a movie-based video game, they were pretty damn good. The Last Starfighter, pretty good. I mean, like I said, there are good movie-based games. Like the Lego Star Wars is based on the movies. Those games are fucking awesome. Well, not the new ones, but the complete trilogy that you could get on the 6th and 7th gen systems. Those games are fucking awesome. Any game that lets me play as Darth Vader and force choke Jar Jar Binks repeatedly that game is awesome. Misa. But yeah, Star Wars.
Yeah, I think we discussed enough about Star Wars. Perhaps we could discuss about the Fantastic Four's return in the comics.
Yeah, Fantastic Four has returned. I mean, they're rebooting them. I don't know how they're going to reboot them because, to tell you the truth, I haven't been, like I said, I'm not into the modern. Like, I like old comics. The new ones don't really do much for me.
You're not missing much.
Yeah, I'm like the only comics that I've been reading is the Immortal Hulk because they brought back Bruce Banner as the Hulk, which is good because Amadeus Cho, fuck Amadeus Cho, he's not the Hulk. But aside from that, yeah, that's the only comic I've been reading.
They also brought back Captain America, Steve Rogers, Captain America.
Well, yeah, because well, I mean, he was never a Nazi. What happened was that the Red Skull used the Tesseract cube, the Cosmic Cube, to rewrite to rewrite history to create the perfect leader for Hydra. But spoiler, it wasn't him. It was like a evil version of Captain America. And the real Captain America was basically absorbed into the Tesseract, into this alternate dimension, and he eventually escapes and defeats the bad Captain America. It was kind of fucked up, but I mean, you know, like here's my problem with Marvel right now. They keep on trying to invert the formula of their characters, and it's like, don't. The reason people like Captain America is because he's a certain way, and that's what they like. Like Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Yeah, Miles Morales is cool. But to me, he's not Spider-Man. He's Spider-Boy. Spider-Man is Peter Parker.
Speaking of Miles Morales, have you seen the trailer for Into the Spider-Verse?
No. I mean, I saw part of the trailer where it's like all CGI, not CGI. It's got this weird animation that's kind of looks kind of cool. Yeah,
it kind of looks like stop motion.
Yeah, it looks kind of cool. Like I said, I'm not against Miles Morales. I think it's good that they made a Spider-Man that is multi-ethnic. No, that's multi-ethnic. That's cool. But to me, when I think Spider-Man, it's Peter Parker.
Oh yeah, because he's the original.
Yeah, like I like the original. It's like when there's been many people who've worn the Captain America mantle. Steve Rogers, but when I think Captain America, I think Steve Rogers. Yeah, Bucky Barnes wore the mantle. Frank West, the guy who eventually rebranded himself as American Agent, wore the Captain America mantle for a while. Falcon wore the mantle for a little bit. I'm Captain America, but really, when someone says Captain America, to me, I'm thinking, okay, it's Steve Rogers. It's like there are many people who've worn the Batman mantle, but to me, if someone says, well, who's Batman? I say, oh, well, the first Batman was Bruce Wayne. The second Batman was Terry McGinnis. That's it. Like, it's like, well, what about the time that Dick Grayson wore the cowl and he was Batman? Yeah, it was Dick Grayson impersonating Batman.
Yeah. Can the same be said with Ghost Rider's Johnny Blaze? Even though they
there's other people who are like, the thing is that Ghost Rider is inherited. There's multiple Ghost Riders. There's like a Ghost Rider from the West, from like the 1800s, and there's Johnny Blaze, which is like the Ghost Rider that's most popular with in the comics because he's the one that really is most exemplified. He was the first Ghost Rider that was in the comics. Like that people that they wrote about because they retroactively added the Ghost Riders from different ages. But I mean, now they have a new guy who's the Ghost Rider, and I mean, like, you know, Ghost Rider's cool. It's like even if they reboot the Silver Surfer and they don't have I forgot his original name, but if they don't have that guy, the Silver Surfer is like an inherited title. It's like Sorcerer Supreme. Sorcerer Supreme is an inherited title, so anyone who has inherited the mantle is Sorcerer Supreme. But not every Sorcerer Supreme is Dr. Stephen Strange. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, yeah. But yeah, I would personally love for there to be a good Fantastic Four reboot. I hope it sells well. I hope they bring them back with dignity, and whoever writes the stories doesn't forget that the Fantastic Four are first and foremost a fucking family, and they're explorers.
Yeah, we can blame the 2015 movie for Marvel to kill off the franchise for a while.
Well, they had to, because that was going to hurt the brand anyway. I mean, come on, man. Look, here's the thing. Everyone would like some fake ass and I mean, I'll keep it real. Some fake ass fans of the Fantastic Four movie were like, well, I mean, like fake ass fans of Fantastic Four. Well, why is Johnny Blaze a black guy? It doesn't fucking matter. Like literally, you can make Johnny Blaze into anybody. The whole point of the Fantastic Four is that they're a family. I don't care if Johnny Blaze is a three-eyed green alien with antennae. As long as he and Ben Grimm, as long as he's always fucking with Ben Grimm, and Sue Storm's like, look, you need to calm the fuck down. Reed's like, look, just stop making a lot of noise. I'm working. You know, as long as they have that family dynamic, it works. The reason the 2015 didn't work is because there was no family. Like you literally could have called that shit anything because it was Fantastic Four.
So you would accept a younger Mr. Fantastic then?
Well, I mean, it depends on how well it's written. Like a younger Mr. Fantastic would be cool, but I mean, even if they did a younger Mr. Fantastic, like as long as they get the dynamic down, as long as they don't try to turn it into like young adult Fantastic Four like they did with Josh Trank's shitty ass movie, then you know I don't care.
Well, because I was just saying that Josh Trank's Mr. Fantastic was much younger than how he was in the comics.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like, I mean, like here's the thing. In the comics, Mr. Fantastic, when you first meet Reed Richards, when you first meet him, is like in his 40s, and Sue Storm is in her she's way younger than he is in the comics. Like she's in her mid to late 20s. It's kind of like, you're kind of a dirty old man, dude. And Ben Grimm is around. Ben Grimm and Reed Richards are around the same age. But Johnny Storm is Sue's younger brother. Yeah, he's Sue's younger brother. So I mean, like I said, like Reed is the dad, Sue is the mom. Ben is basically like Reed Richards' uncle. He's like Reed Richards' brother, and Johnny is the kid of the group. He's like the annoying kid who's always aggravating everybody. You know.
Yeah.
And that's the dynamic. It's a family. Like people they're like first and foremost, whatever they do, they have to be a family. And secondly, they aren't superheroes. They're scientists and explorers. Like they're scientists and explorers who deal with super villains occasionally, but their big thing is that they're explorers. They're exploring shit, you know? Right. So
I kind of vaguely remember the Hanna-Barbera cartoon showing the exact same thing. Like how Fantastic Four travels to various dimensions and planets.
Like the best way I could describe the Fantastic Four if they were going to reboot them in comic form is think Johnny Quest, except everyone has powers. I mean, basically that's what they are. They're because Johnny Quest, you have Ben, you have Benton Quest, you have Benji Quest, you have Johnny Quest, you have Race Bannon, you have and Haji, who's Johnny's adopted brother. So basically, they're a family going on adventures.
And who would be Bandit?
That weird robot.
I knew you were going to say that.
That weird robot. He'd be perfect. Well, we don't need a bandit. I'm just saying, like, that whole dynamic of their family going on adventures, discovering stuff, doing exploration. As long as they get that, the Fantastic Four could be fucking awesome. I mean, I don't know if I don't know if people, I don't know, whatever they're gonna do. I hope Marvel doesn't do this diversity push where they start doing weird shit without it having a reason and not surreptitiously.
Right.
I mean, I like diversity in comics. I like the fact that, I like that, but don't go for diversity just so that you can fuck up existing characters.
Yeah, that's the biggest argument that I've been hearing from many Marvel fans in regards to the modern Marvel comics.
Don't kill off Spider-Man just so that you can make Miles Morales the new Spider-Man, because people aren't gonna like that. I personally, here's the thing. Here's the people who are like that. I have something to tell you guys. You can always go read the old shit and pretend like the new shit didn't happen. Because the old shit.
Just like Halloween Carl likes to enjoy his, just like this all those pre-One More Day Spider-Man comics, because he wants to pretend all the post One More Day Spider-Man comic issues never happened.
Well, to be fair, they fucked up. Spider-Man was doing really well for years until Civil War happened and Spider-Man unmasked himself. That's when the downhill spiral started, because anyone who writes Spider-Man knows that there's three things you have to know about Peter Parker. Peter Parker will never unmask himself because Peter Parker has people that he cares about.
Anyone who's closer to him.
And that's just, I mean, I'm someone who, my dad collected comics and I kind of collect comics, like old comics, Spider-Man stuff. I'm really into Marvel, so Spider-Man. The only DC I really collect is Swamp Thing, because Swamp Thing's easier to collect because it's relatively new, but for DC. But yeah, as a Spider-Man fan, Spider-Man stopped fights and web swung away when his mask got ripped because he didn't want anyone to know his identity, because he has people that he cares about that don't have powers that can be killed. And this started because of the Gwen Stacy thing. And it's they fucked that up. That's all I gotta say. They fucked up when they did that. It should have never been done. They should have never had Spider-Man unmask himself.
Though, unless we can talk about the ending scene of Spider-Man: Homecoming when Aunt May just stumbles upon him in his Spider-Man costume.
Yeah, but he could have said, "Hey, it's a Halloween costume. Hey, I'm going to a costume party. Hey." I mean, that's easier. Not to mention, I mean, Aunt May's died 3 or 4 times, and she admits, "Yeah, I knew you were Spider-Man." So I mean, that's not really all that,
Right.
It's not all that bad. I mean, she'd have to be. Look, Aunt May is many things, but she's she may pretend like she's an old lady, doesn't know what's going on, but yeah, she knew. I mean, come on, man. He had lived in her house for years. I mean, come on, man. I mean, I like Aunt May though. I think she's a cool old broad. I mean, in the comics, she's an old lady. I mean, Marissa Tomei is hot Aunt May. So the Marvel Cinematic Universe is hot Aunt May. In the comics, it's old Aunt May. But either way, Aunt May is pretty damn badass. So.
Speaking of which, have you ever read that comic where she encounters a Galactus?
Yeah, she becomes the golden oldie. She becomes a new herald for Galactus. Yeah. She's the golden oldie. Yeah, I mean, I like Marvel. Marvel, to me, Marvel comics are fun. DC comics can be fun, but they have to have a good story. But even bad Marvel comics, except for that age in the '90s where you had the comic book market crash, But even bad Marvel comics are still kind of fun to read. You know, it's like this shit's ridiculous. What?
Even the Clone Saga.
Even the Clone Saga. There are things about the Clone Saga that are fun. Although, like, I never was a big fan of the Clone Saga just because, once again, they're trying to pitch. They're like, well, you know, the Scarlet Spider, you know, Ben Riley. Ben Riley's Spider-Man. I'm like, no, you're not. Peter Parker's Spider-Man. Even though he's a clone and they're exactly the same. Their costumes are different, though. Although I think there's like a part in the Clone Saga where Ben Riley starts wearing Peter Parker's Spider-Man costume, and it's like, I just don't feel comfortable with Ben Riley wearing that costume. My favorite Spider-Man comic is Secret Wars, where
he got his symbiote suit.
Yeah, where he got his symbiote suit, and Spider-Man basically recruits a team of like the most powerful superheroes to help him. Like, because this I forget the guy's name, the Underminer. Yeah, the Underminer basically comes up with an idea, or maybe he's the Overminer. The Underminer basically wants to determine which is more powerful, good or evil. And so basically, like, he gets the most evil team, and they fight. And Spider-Man gets the team of heroes, so he gets like Captain America and the Fantastic Four and like some other people. And I mean, that's where he gets his symbiote suit. He's like he gets his suit gets jacked up while he's fighting, because Spider-Man is not. Like, everyone's like, well, Spider-Man's a really powerful mutant. Not really. Like, Spider-Man's not a really powerful mutant. He does the best he can with what he has, but he's not like the Hulk or anything like that. And his suit gets ripped, and like Peter Parker has that Peter Parker luck, which means Peter Parker will fuck up shit because that's what he does. And they're like, he's like, yeah, I need a new. He's like, I need a new suit. And they're like, yeah, go back there, and it's in the second cabinet to the left or some shit. And he goes back there, he gets the wrong cabinet, and he gets the symbiote. It's like shit. It's like, I mean, I like Spider-Man, but Peter Parker. He's like honest. He's like Honest Gil from The Simpsons. He just can't catch a break.
Yeah.
Honest Gil needs a sale. Come on.
I remember what Stanley said, that no matter how much of a bad day you had, Peter Parker has it worse.
That's right. That's right. Like, that's the thing about Peter Parker. No matter how bad your life is, Peter Parker's life is worse. Like Peter Parker will turn into Spider-Man, save the city, but then get there and find out he's been fired from his job. So now he's got to go back and live with his Aunt May. Like, or he'll be on a date and with Mary Jane. He's about to propose, and some shit jumps off, and he's like, I'll be right back. And he saves the city. He comes back, she's gone. He's like, shit. Like, he just can't catch a break. And that's part of, like, Peter Parker has real people problems. Like, he's got to make his rent. He's got a job he's got a boss he can't fucking stand. That's what I like about Peter Parker. He's a very human hero. He's not like Superman, who's like, damn near perfect. Except for the thing, he can't really have sex. But aside from that, great guy, great character. I like him.
You're just hoping for the next Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, it's probably going to be good. I mean,
yeah, maybe if the Iron Spider suit survives the Infinity War, if you might use it somehow in the next film.
I'm going to keep it real. I'm actually quite happy that at the end of Homecoming, Peter Parker goes back to his classic suit and doesn't use Tony Stark's Iron Spider suit. He's like, you're right, I need to use my own shit. Like, I like the fact that Spider-Man uses his own shit because it feels more authentic.
Right.
But that's just me. So we've reached the end of the podcast. Anything you want to talk? Anything you want to bring up before we wrap things up?
Nothing much. Nothing much. Though I do have some video game related information that I'm saving for the PS Busters.
All right. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. So with that being said, that's the end of the Sci-Fi Power Hour ish. I should have some more videos coming out tonight and tomorrow because I mean, look, I'm gonna keep it real. This is my spring vacation, and I just didn't do shit all week. Okay, so forgive me. Um, but I'll get back on a more consistent uploading schedule sometime next week. And stay tuned. Hopefully, knock on wood, we should have a guest with us with tomorrow's BS Busters.
Yeah, and here's the hoping that he's active tomorrow because usually he posts a new article every Sunday, and it's usually related to anime
All right.
or some obscure video game that we never heard of or played before.
Well, look, man, that variety is the spice of life. So, with that being said, that's the end of this episode. Rate, comment, share, subscribe. If you like the content that I provide, don't forget to ring that to click on the bell icon so that you will be notified on new uploads and new videos and new podcasts, etc., etc. And good day.